Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel.
So that part is kind of done. So let's add a logic cube, yay! And I'll use a microchip and scope that in. So I'm going to hold L1 and press X, and that scoped the chip into the sculpt, and now it's one group with both of them in it. And I'll move it over to be in the center of that, and turn on X-ray mode, so now I can see gadgets and stuff through groups and sculpts and everything. So I'm going to open that. We want to find out the angle from this point in the center of this marker to the player. So I'm going to have a tag in the player, and I'll call it feet because it's going to be at the feet. And I'm just going to place it roughly. And then I want this to rotate so that it looks at the player. So I'll use a look at rotator, and we'll target that feet tag. Oh, we need to tweak the chip and link it to the overall group. And now gadgets in there will be linked to the overall group. So if we just do that, now this will tell the whole group to rotate to a particular point. It's kind of pointing off to the side because by default the arrow points off to the side. It rotates so that that arrow points at the tag that is found. So we want that arrow to be forwards just to keep ourselves sane. So let's just move that forwards. Okay. And we want to max these out so that it's just instantly there. And I'll just type in a whole load of numbers in here. And that uses the maximum number it can. But it's kind of pointing downwards. We don't want that. We just want it to rotate left and right. So for that we can tweak it and go into the strength and distance settings and turn down strength in Y. So now it doesn't care about looking up or down. So if I change this slowly, you can see now it cares about looking up and down. And if we turn that down, now it doesn't care, which is what we want because this compass doesn't really care about up and down either. Cool. Now we want to get that same yaw value. So we'll copy these splitters out into here and use a tag. Put that in there. And that gets us the yaw that we're looking for. So if we just display that on the box somehow, I'll put it into in scene and always on top and stuff. And now we can see what value we're getting as we move around. So it's looking towards the player and it says 58. As we move around it, it's changing because its angle towards the player is changing. That could equally be looking at a tag in the head tracker if you preferred, depends on how you want it to feel. But we don't actually want just an angle of how rotated it is. We want how rotated it is relative to how we're looking. So we're looking north, and it is north. So we want to. It's not really rotated much at all compared to the direction we're looking in. Whereas if we were looking at it like that, it would be on the side. So it's rotated quite a bit. So it should show if we're looking out on here, it should be dead on below the north point on there. But as it rotates, the north goes left on that HUD, and the marker for this object should also go left in the same way. So we want to kind of get a relative position, not just the actual rotation, but the rotation compared to the rotation of the camera itself. And that's why we're sending it out with this wireless transmitter thing. We just want to subtract these two to see what that gives us. So let's use a calculator. So subtract the marker yaw from the view yaw, or the other way around, the marker yaw minus the view yaw, and we'll output that to see what that gives us. Make it a bit bigger. Right, so now we're looking dead on, and it's near to 0. And if we move to this side and look dead on, it's close to 0 again, and that should be in the middle of that top HUD thing whenever we're looking straight at it. So when it's near to 0, we want to adjust the display of whatever icon we use to be kind of around the middle. So we're actually going to copy one of these and wire that up to it. For now, I'll just use this signal manipulator. The values that we're getting from the camera angle, that was minus 180 to plus 180, right? So let's just reiterate that. So minus 180 and then round to plus 180 so it gets to a certain point. And this could be rotated for this thing here. That could be rotated minus 180 to 180. So we look at the numbers, we can get down to around minus 180 and then round to plus 180 on the other side. So the biggest number we could possibly have is when we have 180 on this and then we subtract the negative 180 from the camera. So that would add up to 360. And the lowest number we can have is if this number was minus 180 and then we subtract 180 from the camera. It would go down to minus 360. So we actually don't have a range from plus and minus 180. We have plus and minus 360. But that isn't very useful, because what does minus 360 give us that 0 doesn't give us, or 360 does? All of those things are exactly the same comparative rotation of this object, because like if you rotate something 360 degrees, it'll end up facing the same way anyway. So we kind of want it to loop around 0 to 360. And we have a trick for that, which is we know it can only go to minus 360, so first we'll make it positive by adding 360 to it. So now if it's negative 50 degrees or something, then it's 360 minus 50 degrees. So we've got a positive number. Actually, we don't need that one. Just want that one. Yeah, so now because if it was a positive number, so it was positive 50, we're still adding 360 to it. So it's going over 360. So then we want to find the remainder after division of 360. And that will just give us the bit that it went over. So just these two gadgets, and that will give us a value that is just looping around between 0 and 360, and that will be a more useful thing. So when we're looking dead on for it now, dead on at the marker, it should be around 0 and kind of flickering to 360 sort of thing, but stay very low to 0 or very high to 360. So if we move over here and look straight at it, it's very low or very high, depending on the exact angle. And if we run over here and look at it, again, it's very low or very high. What we need to use that for now is we've got a 0 between 0 and 360. We want to turn that into a percentage. So if we use the signal manipulator from 0 to 360, which is what we have now, we can turn that into 0 to 1. Like that. We can wire that to control the timeline. And we want to give it a different icon. So we actually want this to, we need to adjust this stuff. So it's that one there. We need to turn this on to custom for the vertical, otherwise it will be locked to the top still. Okay. Let's move it down a bit. And then L1 and right and left goes between keyframes on the same row. So now we can move that one down a bit. Like that. And we'll change it to UI environment, this mountains thing. Okay, that's okay, so it's doing something, it's kind of inverted, and it's showing when it's off to the left. So if we, what we'll do is we'll look dead on at it, and that's going to right to the beginning, but it's going to be really annoying to spread this stuff out between right at the start and right at the end of this timeline. So what I'd prefer is if when we're dead on, it looks it's in the middle of the timeline, and we can just shift those along a bit. So for that, I can just point the tag in a slightly different direction, or rotate the tag 180 basically. So the Z is pointing this way, we'll have the Z pointing that way, and now it's going to the middle like that, and I'll put it back down in the middle. Yeah, and now I'll use test mode. So when we're looking dead on at it, doesn't matter what angle we're looking from, it goes to the middle of the timeline. So if we just move these along, now when we're looking at it, it's dead on, and keep going around. But again, it's kind of when you go like this, the mountain should be going right. So we'll just go over here and tweak this and invert the output. So instead of going from 0 to 1, it goes from 1 to 0 and just flips the direction of these. Otherwise, you can kind of move these keyframes around or something. I'll just do that. Right, so now it's moving to the right when it's on the right of the screen, moving to the left when it's on the left. If it's too far back, then it disappears. And when we're looking straight at it, it's right in the middle. And that's all working fine. And you can have a load of these around the scene. And all you need to do to make a new marker, I'm just going to have this very large off into the distance. And another one over here. So it's a new marker, and all I have to do is change the icon. That. Oh, that's enter. I thought it was exit. Anyway. And now that will show on, when you look at that one, in the north. And that one's in the west. And of course, it doesn't matter where these are. It's going to be off to the side. And now it won't be perfectly north. And lastly, I'll show you how to have it kind of follow a moving object. So the object is moving around, and the marker on the screen is also moving around to match. So for this one, I'll have I drop down R, which is pointing up, and we'll give it a different color. We'll make it red. It's a enemy thing. Cool. And we'll just have this teleport to an NPC that's running around. So we just need a tag to teleport to. And this will be the NPC feet. And that will teleport to them. NPC feet don't match the target orientation because it's going to rotate and stuff with this lookout rotator. Make sure this is non-collidable and probably invisible. So let's just do that. I'll just record it moving around with a possession recorder, and it's back. So now this can be no position, and now it'll just move by itself and then control the other characters. So it's moving. You can see the marker on the HUD is moving with the character relative to the angle I'm looking at. But if you have so I'll have another one over here. I don't really want to have lots of these with all different tag names and stuff. So for this, I'll do it slightly differently. I'll put it inside there, and I'll make it smaller. It doesn't matter the size of it at all. I'm going to use L1 and triangle on this, which uses the grid of the puppet, so everything's going to align nicely. And then I'll snap this to the grid. Okay. And then snap that to the grid. And now that will work exactly the same, but we want it to kind of rotate attached to this object. When things have rotators on them and stuff, they become kind of movable. So that means it moves separately to the group it's in. So we need to kind of anchor it, and that's why we copy out one of these cubes. So it's still within this puppet thing, but it's separate to the marker. And then we use so this isn't movable at all, and then we can have a bolt linking to that, and let it rotate in that way, and now it should move with it like that, but it will still rotate properly depending on the angle of the puppet and everything. So you can see it's like moving around just fine. I'll make that a green marker instead. Cool, so they both work fine, and you can have as many of these as you like. So if I just, they'll all be moving very strangely, but it'll work. And they all have their own markers, and it's all working fine. Cool, and it all fades out nicely at the edges and everything. And then you can turn this kind of temp display up there off, and now it looks like that. So cool.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.